Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. I want to thank you for joining us today. You can check us out at huddleupwithgus.com. You can go to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We will be on there. We're on every network, so we appreciate you. We want to thank all of our sponsors today, the Little Blue Pill, Credit Guard, Nutrigenics, 1631 Digital News, always a big plus. Go to 1631 Digital News, check out their sports news, information, entertainment. They do a great job with that. And definitely check out to where our podcast is held at Sounder FM. Go to sounder.fm and check out our podcast along with many, many others. And we appreciate you listening. And please go to our YouTube channel so you can watch the video, not just listen to the show, but now you can watch our shows on our great YouTube channel, Huddle Up with Gus. So I appreciate you listening. And get ready for the show. It's a great one.
Welcome to what surely will be a doozy of a matchup right here, sports fans. Whether your game is on the gridiron, at the diamond, or on the links, we can only say, get up off your seats and get ready for some real action. Welcome to this week's Huddle Up with Gus. 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, passion for sports, has taken him on the field and behind the benches, playing for 7 NFL franchises with 114 TDs under his belt. Gus knows who the players are and how the games are won.
If not every day you get to hang out with an NFL quarterback, huh?
Okay, sports fans, from the decked out and plush 1631 Digital Studios, it's kickoff time. So snap your chin straps on and get ready to huddle up with Gus.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, and I appreciate you listening to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can check us out at huddleupwithgus.com. Or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, like I said, and we appreciate you coming on today. We want to thank all of our friends and sponsors, 1631 Digital News. We appreciate them always helping us out. We want to thank Multiformat Network. We really appreciate all the work that they do, and Sounder.fm. Sounder is where we host our podcast. Those guys are wonderful. If you're looking to start a podcast and you want to make it easy and fun, go to Sounder FM and they'll help you through the process. Today's guest, I'm really excited for. She is the daughter of a very famous and iconic actor, and I'm sure a lot of people would know the name, James Garner. But we'll get into more about him. But right now, we're going to talk to Gigi Garner. She's the daughter of James. She's done a lot in her life, and now she's continuing her dad's love of what he liked to do in production and film and everything else. So, Gigi, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you on. I appreciate it. So, we usually start kind of like about how you fell in love with sports, but I know you're in a different world. So what I want to talk about is kind of like growing up as a kind of a child of a Hollywood icon and what that was like. And then almost when did you fall in love with what your dad was doing? Because it seems like you have a real passion for it still.
Are you talking about racing? Or are you talking about?
I guess it's everything.
Like
your dad was into a lot of different things. The industry.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that, yes, I did fall in love with the sport because of my dad, and that sport is racing. And
he did several movies in that.
Yes. My dad learned how to drive a race car from Bob Bondurant in 1965 or 66 when he made Grand Prix, and he did all the driving himself, including most of the stunts. And my dad ended up owning a racing team of his own and ended up coming in second in the Baja 1000. And so he was a real driver. And so most weekends we went to the races. We went to Ontario Motor Speedway or Riverside or anywhere that was close or far. He would be at the races when he was available. So I did fall in love with this sport when I was a little kid, and I'm still in love with racing. And I just got back from Indy 500 last weekend, where I was so blessed to be able to ride in one of the pace cars.
Well, I've done that before. How exciting is that?
Oh my goodness. The adrenaline involved is through the roof. And I got to see all the people that were there. There were so many people there. And it was just really thrilling. About halfway through the 2 and something laps, I thought to myself, ooh, I looked over at the speedometer and I thought, oh, my dad might not like this. And I went, oh, forget it, it's Indy 500. So we're going pretty quick.
Yeah, I started a race at the Pepsi 500 one time. Obviously NASCAR, a little different, but the banks were so steep. I remember hanging on to the as they say, the holy shit bar, you know what I mean? The handle up there that because the angles were so steep, but I know Indy's a little different than that.
I think it was a little flatter, but it was just really exhilarating I thought it was going to be like in a little parade, before the race. I didn't realize that I was actually going to be in a car behind the president from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he had a lead foot. So my driver just behind him was just trying to keep up. That's what I think. But I thought I was just doing a little, tour of the racetrack. No, we were actually pacing. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Do you remember how your dad fell in love with racing? Was it because he was going to make a movie and he went and tried it?
He fell in love with it because I think he always loved cars. He was always interested in cars, but when he got the opportunity to star in Grand Prix, he had to learn how to be a real race car driver from a real race car driver, professional. And he just took to it right away. It was a natural thing. And a lot of drivers said he could have been a very successful professional driver.
Oh, wow. He'd probably love to hear that. But you know what? A lot of those drivers couldn't be a Hollywood icon either.
I think if he had a choice between acting and racing, he probably would have chosen racing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you probably don't have all the people telling you to stop, go, quit, cut, action, right? You're just driving and you're out there mentally doing it I'm not sure how long an Indy race takes, but you're stuck in a car by yourself for a long time. Right.
He loved it. He drove on the track, Monza, Monaco, Spa. I mean, Brands Hatch. He drove all those courses himself in the race car, in a Formula car.
Did he have a favorite?
And the other people that were the actors like Yves Montand, Brian Bedford, and Antonio Sabato, those actors didn't even have a driver's license before they started filming Grand Prix. And a couple of them were okay, but a couple of them didn't make the cut. So they had the real drivers driving. They had Jackie Stewart and Jack Brabham and I think Jim Clark. And I mean, they had real race car drivers driving those cars.
Did your dad always do his own stunts?
Yes.
Because it seems like when I read a little bit about him, obviously he was in the military, he's from Oklahoma. I'm sure he grew up and, it was tough. And he seems like a really kind of hardworking, kind of down to earth guy.
Very, very.
So, yeah. So when you kind of like, oh, these stunts aren't that big a deal, I was just going to do
them. Well, he was the one who created that Rockford J-turn. And he did them in the Rockford Files. Oh, yes. So, and he loved to do car stunts and things like that. There's a stunt actually in Grand Prix where he was supposed to turn off the fuel during a particular shot, and the button was stuck, and he ended up catching on fire. and they got him out without, any burns, but it was a little bit close.
Now, as a kid, did you go to a lot of movie sets and things like that? And were you there a lot?
I did. Yes, I was there a lot. My dad was, away a lot. He worked a lot, just like most people's dads. And I did get to go to work with my dad quite a bit, especially in the summer. I would get to go, or we would go on, on location if he was shooting somewhere in Europe or whatever. Back then it took a really long time to make a movie. It took about 9 months. And so that's a really long time to be without your family. So he would bring us over and we'd get to see him.
Was there something that you would love to do when you got onto set?
Well, one time when my dad was making a movie with Doris Day, I got to ride the horse inside the stage. So riding a horse indoors is pretty cool. But I would always want to ride the horses whenever he was doing a Western.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm sure he grew up. I mean, he grew up in Norman, Oklahoma. Did he grow up riding horses?
He did. And to be perfectly honest with you, he was really good with horses, but he didn't really like them that much. I know that's very hard to digest for you Maverick fans out there, but he was really good with horses, but he just wasn't crazy about them.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gigi, my daughter's a vet, and she went through veterinarian school.
Oh,
and every
amazing.
person told us that she should work with horses. And because she was so good, they have a large animal facility. The University of Pennsylvania does. And every professor, everybody she had said that she just has a knack. They calm down when she goes in there, and none of them ever go crazy when she's around. She just had a knack. And I said, why don't you want to work with large animals? Yeah, she that's what they would tell us. And I said, why don't you want to work? She wants to be a regular vet. And I said, why don't you want to work with large animals? She goes, Dad, those horses can kill you with one kick. No, thank you. I was like, oh, and she said, Dan, I've seen them be very temperamental, especially when you're trying to shove a needle. So I get it. Like I've heard her talk about it.
My dad was a huge, huge animal person. He loved animals, but he wasn't like crazy about horses, but he was so good on a horse. I saw him do a lot of stunts, where he would follow the horse and do all these things. He was just really good with them, but I think it's probably because he grew up riding horses. They were very poor. They're in the Dust Bowl. He had 2 older brothers. He would end up getting kicked off the back of the horse on their way to school. He just probably had some painful memories or something like that. But he was a crazy dog person like I am. And now I have a charity called the James Garner Animal Rescue Fund, JGARF. And that is to continue my dad's legacy into the future by using my super passion, which is animals and animal rescue. I've been an animal rescuer for over 30 years. And it's really, it's what I live for, and it's my purpose. Just like your daughter has a purpose to be a vet.
She's had that purpose since she's been 12.
I don't think I'm smart enough to get through vet school, so I'm just going to be a philanthropist.
Well, she'll tell you she's the smartest one in our family.
Well, I'm sure vet school is very difficult. Very difficult. Being a doctor of anything is just like a major accomplishment, especially since animals have so many different parts. There's so many different animals.
Right, exactly. Hey, everyone, we're talking to Gigi Garner on Huddle Up with Gus. Thank you for joining us. Gigi, one of the things my daughter always said is, like, if you're a human doctor, you study 1 anatomy. If you're an animal doctor, You got to study 4 or 5. Like I remember her
or
taking her
more.
test. Yes. Well, it's like it all depends on what you want to kind of study. If it's exotic, if it's kind of normal. I mean, there's so many different animals and species out there. And
Yep.
she just kind of stayed with the large animal and, cats and dogs, the kind of normal pets that people have. But she's in DC and she's at Friendship Animal Hospital. And she tells us some amazing, good and bad stories, because not everyone loves their animal, takes care of them like you and I would.
Right. Right. And it's a tragedy, and that's why I established this 501c3 charity, is to try to help either individuals, groups all over the world, to try to help them with their medical care, with lodging, transport, food, mostly emergent care,
Yes,
medical
that's very
care.
expensive.
But yeah,
What?
it's extremely expensive, and it just is what it is. They have no voice, and I want to be a voice for them.
No, I agree. So we have 3 dogs at home now, 2 are rescues. So I get it. What's the furthest
Awesome.
that you've ever traveled to get an animal?
Thailand.
Wow. What?
Yeah. I saw a picture of 3 puppies in an alleyway in Thailand. And I just thought to myself, if this is the last thing I ever do, I'm going to rescue these 3 puppies, because in Thailand they eat dogs.
Yeah.
And, it's just not, it's not conducive for, 3 puppies. So I work with a rescuer there, and we coordinated the entire thing, and we got them all the way to Sonoma, California, and we got them adopted out.
Yeah, that's crazy, because we have a dog from Africa right now, a Basenji.
Oh,
And she was
I love
rescued.
those dogs.
Her and her sister were rescued by my wife's nephew's wife's brother. He's a diplomat. And they were out one day and they saw them at a market, and it's the same thing. They were going to be sold for meat, and he rescued the 2 sisters, and the story and the journey that dog had to go through just to get back to the States through quarantine and being stuck in a crate. She's been with us for over a year, and she still has issues. It's
traumatic. That you have no idea what these rescue dogs have been through before you get them. And you got to be patient, and it just is what it's kind of depressing if you want to think of it. I mean, I've sent a lot of money to Ukraine recently, because the situation over there is very, very, very serious for everyone. People, children, animals, it's all very frightening right now. But I can just do a little bit, and I do what I can.
Yeah, I saw the one organization, they were putting out these tubes full of food for all the pets, right? Because the pets obviously so many of them have no homes anymore, and they don't know where to go. And the people are just escaping, and it's hard to take your animal with you when you're just trying to fight for your life. And so these great organizations were going over and putting these long tubes, they would tie them up, and the food would come out the bottom, and just for pets to be able to come and eat.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to do a lot of good, and like you said, they can't speak for themselves. They can't, they need help because they've been domesticated. Right? They're not wild animals.
Right.
So we have to be able to help them as much as possible.
They can't open a can of dog food because they don't have thumbs.
Although my dogs have ripped open a few bags of dog food.
I'm talking cans, not bags.
Right. Yeah. So what kind of dogs did you guys have growing up?
Well, my dad got me a dog when I was 6 years old, got my first dog, and he was an Australian Silkie. And he's like, those are like Yorkies. And really loved that dog. But we had a lot of dogs growing up. We had several white shepherds. Yeah. And my dad also found a rescue dog in the desert who was like, I don't know what he was. He was like a shepherd mix. But my dad went in a motorhome with his best friend and parked out in the middle of the desert because my dad had to quit smoking because he was getting ready to do some advertisements for some non-smoking gum, I think it was. And so they parked in the middle of nowhere, and this puppy came from just literally out of the desert. My dad scooped him up, brought him home, and called him and named him Nicotine.
And him and Nicotine
so we called him
became best friends, right?
Yeah.
That's how you did rehab back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Drive out to the desert and can't partake in anything.
Right. You can't get to any stores to buy cigarettes or anything.
So, did you start the foundation or your dad, the James?
I did.
JG
No,
Arts?
I did.
You did.
I started it after he passed away.
So there's a big auction coming up, correct? That will.
There is.
Some of the funds will go towards this.
Yes. Well, actually, in January, I sold my dad's car at the Barrett-Jackson auction for $100,000. I couldn't believe I raised $100,000 for my charity,
wow.
But I did. In January for a 2009 Cadillac.
Wow.
But it was his Cadillac, and it had his license plate Mavrock on it. And there were some animal lovers who were very interested in, they loved cars and they loved animals, and so they bought it. But I have a watch auction coming up in New York City at Phillips Auction House on, I believe it's June 11th. And I'm selling 5 of my dad's watches.
Oh, which ones are they?
I think there's 4 Cartier watches. There's one Bague Noir, which is an oval-shaped watch, which was his dress watch. And then there's another one that's very rare. It's a Carrera. It's a Heuer, Tag Heuer. And there was a watch forum on the internet, and they reached out to me, and they said, we see this watch all the time on the Rockford Files, and we're trying to figure out, we know it's a Carrera, but we can't figure out what is on the face of the watch. And I just candidly said, his name. And come to find out, they don't put names on watches. That company just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
We don't. We think it came from the factory because it has the same font and the same color ink, but we don't know how my dad got it. And there are obviously there's only one James Garner watch. So it's James Garner's James Garner. But, it's a racing watch, and Heuer thought it was very special, extremely special, and I want to raise money for my charity, so I'm going to auction those watches off in about, a week's time.
Yeah.
New York City.
That's awesome. So when you I don't know if this will be a tough question or not, but when you see things that were your dad's being auctioned off, how do you feel about that? Because, a lot of people have so much emotional attachment to things that their parents had or family members had. How do you feel about all of that?
You know what? It's bittersweet, but all the things that are being auctioned, and I'm auctioning off everything this year. I'm auctioning off all of his Hollywood memorabilia on July 15th through Julian's. And I'm also going to auction his helmet from Grand Prix.
Wow.
At Pebble Beach, Concours d'Elegance in August. I'm the one who's auctioning all of it off. And I'm auctioning it off because I want other people to share in the joy that my dad had for his things. I have an original costume from the TV show Maverick. I have his wardrobe from Murphy's Romance. I have a helmet with his name on it. I have the dressing gown from Victor Victoria. I have a Golden Globe of his. I have a lot of things that I want to share. My dad wanted to be remembered with a smile, and I am hoping that his fans will think this does the trick.
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting. And I was going to ask you about like when he started keeping all that stuff or did the studio store it for him? But I'm thinking back to my career in the NFL. It's like I kept jerseys, I kept all kind of different memorabilia from the times that I played. And so it makes sense that he would do that from his acting career.
My dad did not end up with a lot of wardrobe because basically if you took something from wardrobe, that means that they gave it to you or you just stole it.
Yeah.
And so he did have things, that I'm going to presume that were given to him or they said he could keep. And that's probably how he ended up with. I think he ended up with that Maverick costume because he got into a lawsuit with Warner Brothers over Maverick. And he ended up suing them, and he ended up actually winning breach of contract.
Wow.
But I think one day he got mad, and that was the last day he was on the set, and he was wearing his costume, and he just brought it home.
You just wore it home.
That's what I think.
What are you guys going to do to me, right?
I think that's how he got it. I'm not sure. But, of course he would want to keep his helmet from Grand Prix. And even when he was racing in Baja, he wore that helmet.
Yeah, no, that's great.
It's a real iconic piece.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be bittersweet for you to watch it. And you're going to make somebody very happy, but it is probably going to be bittersweet for you.
I hope it's somebody who really appreciates my dad and understands his legacy and, respects him and things like that. I'd love to see this stuff end up in a museum or, it's somewhere where other people can enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Hey, everyone, we're talking with Gigi Garner, daughter of iconic actor James Garner. We appreciate you listening to Huddle Up with Gus. Check us out at huddleupwithgus.com. So, Gigi, one of the things I think is crazy, which I always wanted to ask, I know when I was playing and you wanted to go out somewhere, you'd call and say, hey, this is Gus Frerotte. Like you kind of, you feel weird about it, but also you take advantage of it. Do you remember times like could you call a place and go, yeah, my dad's James and my name's Gigi. Can I get in for dinner for 2 tonight? Obviously they're like, yeah, of course.
I don't recall doing anything like that because I might have gotten in trouble for that. I don't know. But I don't recall me doing anything like that.
No, oh, come on. You had to do something like that.
If my dad found out, I'd probably get in trouble.
Was he a stickler for all that?
Well, I try not to abuse my privilege.
Yeah.
I have been gifted many, many honors and been in the presence of royalty and all kind. done all kinds of things that I've been so lucky to do, but I can tell you I never feel entitled to it.
Well, I kind of sensed that when I was kind of reading a little bit about your biography, because you've done so many things, right? Where you've been a private investigator, you've obviously done, you've been a print model, you've kind of have a talent agency, you've written books, there's so many things in areas that you've covered in your life, because I don't know, it's like you said, you didn't want to like just say that I was James Garner's daughter.
Well, let me be frank. I mean, there is absolutely nothing in the world that I'm ever going to do that's going to be as good as what my dad has done. But
I bet he would disagree.
I don't know. I mean, I have done a few things, but I just feel like, for example, you are the greatness. You're the person that did all these things to achieve all these goals. I'm just spawn of greatness.
Well, you see, I don't
necessarily deserve all these things, but I try a little bit to be a good example and, represent my dad well, especially with his charity.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But from my standpoint, I don't know how your dad would feel, but my daughter is doing something great. My kids are doing things great. My wife is doing all these awesome things. And I'm just, I just got to do something that I fell in love with as a kid.
Right. But
yeah,
look at what you've achieved in your life. It's as literally amazing.
Oh yeah, I got a bad knees and back and everything to prove it. I just think it's pretty amazing all that you've accomplished, though. So when you wanted to go do something, you must have some a big entrepreneurial spirit. Like you wanted to go and do all these different things.
I think one of the things coming from where I came from a place of abundance, and no matter what crazy idea I had, nobody ever told me, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I just basically thought, okay, well, I can do that. I recently became an artist over the pandemic because I was going crazy, stir crazy in my house. And so I saw one little video on painting, and I thought, oh, I can do that. And then the next thing you know, I have 200 canvases.
Oh, my gosh.
And I called this gallery in Beverly Hills on Camden, and I asked them, oh, do you guys have a photographer? I want to take some pictures of these paintings I did. And they're like, yeah, we can recommend one, but can we see your paintings? I'm like, sure. So I bring in 50 paintings, and they sign me right on the spot.
Wow, that's awesome.
I had literally only been painting for a couple of months.
Well, you must have some talent then.
Insane.
Which dog did you paint first?
I really don't know. I don't know. I don't even paint with paintbrushes. I paint with other items. Like I paint with balloons, popsicle sticks, napkins, paper towels, plastic, just string.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever used to paint with?
They're all weird.
Yeah.
Probably a leaf.
Just said, I'm going to try this.
But they were comparing me to Gerhard Richter, and I'm like, who's Gerhard Richter? He's this really famous German painter. But, I mean, nobody ever told me, Gigi, no, you can't. So I always thought I could. And I do.
So what do you paint?
And I did.
Are you a landscape painter? What do you paint? What is your kind of theme?
It's hard. It's very hard to explain. I'm not a painter like you would think a regular painter. I'm painting things. I'm actually manipulating the paint on the canvas. And they a lot of times turn out looking like a desert, looking like the ocean, looking like a lot of nature things.
Yeah.
It's very hard to explain. Flowers, trees. I mean, they kind of present themselves. I just manipulate the canvas, and it comes out how it comes out.
Now,
Very
do you
unusual.
name them? Do you name your paintings? Or
yes, I do.
What's your favorite?
My favorite? Oh, man. I can't pick a favorite. They're all my babies.
Yeah.
But if you want to take a look at them, you can go to ACCA Gallery in Beverly Hills and look online. And there they are.
You hear that, everyone? Go to ACCA Galleries in Beverly Hills and check them out.
Check them out. But part of the proceeds for that also goes to my charity. That was my idea. I sold some like on Twitter at first because I was like, so I taught myself how to paint during a pandemic, and I posted some of my paintings and they all sold out. And I was like, wait. So I used all that money for my charity. I'm always trying to come up with ideas how to raise money for charity. It's not easy.
No, it's not. There's definitely a bunch of ways you can do it, and some are better than others. The next thing you know, you'll be golfing. No, I tried that. My dad was a scratch golfer. He was a brilliant athlete. He also had bad knees from football. But I tried golf, no good. What position did he play?
I don't know. I don't even know.
He had to tell some old stories from when he played football in high school.
I think he might have played for OU.
Oh,
you went to school in Tulsa, right?
Yeah.
You know that Oklahoma football.
Yeah, it's pretty tough down there, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is.
So
I really don't know.
Did you guys used to go back? Did you guys go back when you were growing up to Oklahoma?
Sure. Yeah. All of my cousins are still there. Yeah.
So did you ever go noodling?
No, but what is noodling?
That's where I learned it in Norman,
Oklahoma. That could be my
Oklahoma.
next career.
Noodling is where you go under the water, you put your hand in a hole like a catfish bites your fist and you pull it out. And that's where I learned what that was, because I was from Pennsylvania and my buddies and I never heard of that. And we had one of our linemen who was from Norman, and he was having a big birthday party. So we all go down there and we pull up to his house and we're like, where is he? And they're like, oh, he's down at the pond with his buddies. And we go down there and they're all like under the water and they're like pulling up catfish with their bare hands. And we're like, what are these crazy people doing? And that's when we found out what noodling was.
I've seen that on
like,
TV.
You guys come on in. I know. They're like, come on in and do it. I'm like, no, I'll never do that. That's insane. You never know.
You could catch something else by accident in there too.
Yeah, definitely.
But
definitely
they have
wouldn't want to.
Snakes and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that I just wondered. It was kind of funny. That's because Norman, Oklahoma is where I learned to do that.
That's a great story.
I learned other people to do that. I mean, that's crazy. But so you've been through all this and you're doing all this and you're kind of continuing the legacy. I talked to not too long ago, I interviewed Kendra Stabler. And if you remember her dad, Kenny Stabler, who played for the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of doing the same thing. She started a foundation. She's continuing on her dad's name and legacy. And, I think it's great that you're doing that and talking about him, because it keeps them in the present, because it teaches so many people who would not otherwise hear about him to remember him and kind of realize how famous and iconic he was.
Well, most older people are very familiar with him. The younger people only know him from the old guy from The Notebook.
Right.
but there is a resurgence of the Rockford Files. A lot of people are like watching it, binge watching it, and getting into it, because I think it holds up. And so he's got a lot of, he's got a lot of people still remember him, but it's really important that, I keep his legacy alive and keep his name relevant through this charity.
Yeah, I think that the pandemic helped with a lot of that, right? Where people were just searching for all these things to watch and kind of take on because they had nothing to do. Like you said, during the pandemic, we were all trying to figure out what are we going to do with our time? We're not used to that. And then that's probably where a lot of people started digging through everything.
They did. I think that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, a lot of people found it, like were making their kids watch it and stuff like that.
Did your dad ever
ask you?
Had a big
resurgence.
Right. Did your dad ever ask you, like, if he was going to do a movie or somebody approached him with something, do you ever ask your opinion on it? Like, what do you think I should do this?
That would be a no. No, he wouldn't ask my opinion, whether I thought something was good or not. But he had a real knack in just knowing what translated from paper to screen, what was going to translate well. And like, I remember his reaction when he first read The Notebook. He was like nuts about it. He knew, he really wanted to do it. In fact, he wanted to do that, film as much as he wanted to do his other like favorite films like The Great Escape and Grand Prix and the Americanization of Emily, which is Patty Chayefsky. So many. He has a really good, he's made some duds. He's made a couple duds, but that is because, he was contracted by the studio. If you do this, you have to do this, blah, blah, blah. But on the ones that he fell in love with and picked, they've all done pretty well.
I feel like that happens to some people. Like, hey, if you wrote a movie or if you have an idea, they take it to the studios and then they say, okay, yeah, we'll produce this, but you got to do 3 other movies for us. And then they just throw one out there just because they got to make it.
Well, I think the whole ugliness of Hollywood has been revealed recently in the Depp Heard trial. Yeah. I think people have a better understanding of how sinister and black this industry can be.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
It seems like your dad's kind of he really stayed above all of that.
He really did. But I mean, he had solid morals. He knew when he was right. He knew that he said in 1959, I guess, that he was going to sue Warner Brothers, and they said, "You'll never work in this town again." And he sued them, and he ended up winning the breach of contract, and his lawyer was the guy who ended up being the president of Walt Disney.
Wow.
My dad also sued Universal because Universal tried to say that there were no residuals from the Rocker Files. My dad knew that was wrong, and he had enough gumption and enough money to retain lawyers for 9 years. And then he knew he had them, and on the morning of the trial, they settled because they didn't want to have to open their books to every other TV show that they may have not paid residuals to.
Well, I mean, you see that a lot.
My dad.
Actors and actresses are.
He was a pioneer.
I mean, they have to go back and look at that. That's like an old court case, right? That you have to go back and so who did this before? What are we going to try and prove? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my dad did a lot of things in the industry that people don't know about. Like there's this pay or play clause, excuse me, whereby if you sign this actor, and if the actor, for some reason, let's say you don't end up making that film, you still have to pay that actor. My dad was the pioneer of that whole thing. And
that's amazing.
He had just a very strong conviction about what he thought was right. and he just went with that.
No, that's incredible. We set the pace for a lot of people to have success in their lives. That's for sure. Who was his best friend in kind of acting in all the movies he's been in? He's been with, he's kind of been opposite of a lot of people. He starred with a lot of people, but who was his really good friend?
His really good friend and his mentor was Henry Fonda. My dad was in a traveling company of a play called King Mutiny Court Martial,
Right.
where Henry Fonda was the lead, and my dad had like 2 lines every night. And so my dad would just watch Henry every night, and that's how he learned how to act. And they remained friends, good friends, until his death.
Well, couldn't be a better mentor, right? For somebody to kind of learn the industry and learn what to do. What an amazing person he was.
Great actor.
Did your dad did he like to host a lot of people? Did you guys have a lot of parties at the house and things like that? Or was he pretty much like keep work and family separate?
They entertained some, but my parents weren't like big Hollywood party people. My dad really only went to something when he had to. If he was promoting a film or something like that, he would have to, because it's like a contractual thing. But he would much rather stay home and watch football, to be honest.
Who was his team?
The Raiders.
That's awesome. Yeah,
he was always on the sideline. He was always on the sideline. He was in the locker room. He loved those guys and very close to them.
Yeah, what an iconic team, the Raiders.
Yeah, amazing.
You still have a Raiders hat? It was an amazing
time, though. I think I may be selling one in that Julian's auction on July 15th.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Well,
it's kind of Oakland Raiders stuff.
It's kind of interesting as a player. You're playing a sport that a lot of people watch and love, and then in comes famous people from other genres or sports, and it's kind of you just kind of appreciate each other. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, I think there's a mutual respect for what they do, for what you do.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, everyone. Appreciate you listening to Huddle Up with Gus. Check me out at huddleupwithgus.com, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So, Gigi, before we kind of get going here, I just think it's pretty amazing. Your dad worked really hard in that industry. You see, like my career is 15 years, and seems like an eternity in the NFL. But your dad he's acted for so long, and it's just amazing that his legacy. How many decades did it span?
I'm not sure, but I mean, he worked a lot and I don't think he became an actor until he was like almost 30. And then he passed away at 86. And then he was working a little bit up towards the end, but not much. So it was quite a big span of time. But I mean, maybe it's like football where you're really on during football season, or you're on while you're making a film or a TV show, and then you're off on hiatus. So it's a kind of on-off thing. But yeah, he worked for many, many, many years. His career spanned quite a long time.
So in that time, he's made television shows, TV movies, regular movies. I think he was also, did he do Broadway?
No.
Or something? No. I'm trying. What was it with Henry Fonda? What was that? That was like a play or something.
It's
correct?
called King Mutiny Court Martial. But yeah, it was a play, and it was the traveling company of that.
Right.
And I think, I don't know if it was on Broadway or not. I'm not sure where it was, but it was all over the place. But I wouldn't say he was playing Broadway. A little different. He only had 2 lines.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, he's kind of like been everywhere, but through all of that stuff, what is your favorite film or movie or TV show that he's ever done?
His favorite TV show was a show called Nichols. It was only on for 1 season. That was his favorite. His other favorite was his film, The Americanization of Emily. Probably my favorite is a not politically correct film by the name of Skin Game, just because I thought it was so funny. It was a comedy, light comedy, with Lou Gossett Jr., and it was just a really funny movie.
Oh, there's a name, Lou Gossett Jr. You know, and you see that name, and it like, but your dad spanned all these people. It's amazing. What a career. And now that you've created a foundation kind of in his name and for something that he loved, I think that's incredible. What do you kind of have planned next besides the auctions?
Well, the auctions are, my main focus, but my main focus is raising money for my charity, JGARF. That is my passion. It's been my passion for 30 years, and it's going to be for the next 30 years. You were asking me if I have any weird feelings about letting go of my dad's stuff. You know what? No, I gave all my relatives all the, photos, photo albums and things like that were family photos and this and that. But the other stuff, I'm okay to part with it because I would sell my soul to the devil to help animals. So anything I can do to raise money is really, really important to me. It's more important to me than the items. So I just want to share them.
Well, how many animals do you have at home right now?
I have 1 little puppy. I had 3 dogs last year. I lost all 3 dogs, and I was just heartbroken, crying for months. And then I just adopted a little girl who's about 4. Her name is Princess Puppers. She's 4 years old. Somebody bred her and dumped her on the street. She is just the sweetest girl, and she's like a mishmash of all kinds of breeds. She's like got a pug tail. She's got cane corso ears. She got a little pitty. She got a Frenchy face, maybe a little Boston Terrier, but she's really adorable. And my whole world revolves around her.
Yeah, no, it's so hard. We lost 3 dogs in 2019, like right through the pandemic. It was awful. Yeah. We lost a bulldog, a French Mastiff, and a Pitty. So it's really tough. Yeah, it's really tough. I don't have any children, and I don't have a partner. I don't have anyone to leave these things to. So I just really came to the conclusion it would be just best to let them go, and so hopefully other people will enjoy them. Well, now it'll be like you have family everywhere. Think about all the people that'll have it all over the place. There'll be a little,
and that'll be great, and they can pass it down to their people. It'll be fantastic.
Right, exactly. No, that'll be wonderful. I think what you're doing is wonderful. But one thing before we go, I didn't really get to ask you. I mentioned it, but I didn't really get to ask you. So tell me, why private investigator?
It's a lot more glamorous, I think, on TV than it really is in real life. I became a private investigator when I lived in Tennessee. I was really interested in law enforcement. I worked for a sheriff's department outside of Nashville where I lived. And I was doing undercover work trying to bust crooked judges and DAs and things like that. My dad was absolutely miserable. He hated it. And
really?
I only did it for a short amount of time because he thought it was just too dangerous.
Was it exciting to you?
It was exciting, and it was kind of like acting, but I really do think I've had like 25 careers. I've been a jewelry designer. I've done all kinds of crazy things. That was probably the craziest.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you can add painter to it now, and who knows what's next? Could be
I don't know if I have a next.
Yeah, it could be a welder.
I don't know if I have a next. Hey, I was a metalsmith. I loved it.
Oh, really?
I'm always looking for something to do. But this charity is it's my heart. Helping animals is my purpose, and I'm very lucky to have found my purpose.
Definitely have to. So please tell our audience how they can follow your charity and follow you.
Oh, that would be great. So I am Mavrocks Girl on Twitter. Mavrocks Girl, Twitter. And then my website for my charity is jgarf.org. jgarf.org. That's my charity.
Awesome. And people can go on there and donate, see what you're doing. And really, if you're an animal lover, please go to jgrf.org and check it out and help Gigi, save a lot of animals that need help out there. I mean, we do a lot as much as we can for all the animals. And, just to see one, to help one is an amazing thing. Because it really is hard, isn't it, to see what people will do to dogs and cats.
It's really hard, but I feel like we have been given the responsibility to take care of animals, and I take it very personally and very seriously. So, a lot of people see abuse and they don't say anything. It's important to speak up because you may save a life.
Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I just don't know why it happens, and I don't see why people can do that to a living thing like that. But and then there's people like you who just want to help them all and do everything they can for them. So thank you for that.
I want to help them all. I can't help them all, but I can help quite a few. So that's my whole purpose.
Awesome. So everyone go to jgarf.org and please help Gigi help all these animals. And if we do it all together and we all go there, then she's going to do a lot more because she's going to put everything she has into it. So Gigi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing so many stories about your father and telling us a little bit about yourself as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really an honor to be on your show. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you again. And I look forward to all of our fans going and helping you out. And hopefully we can help you save some animals as well. I'll definitely tell my daughter to check it out and tell all of her friends that are veterinarians and vet techs and everybody else to go there and check it out. And we'll do as much as we can to help you because we're all animal lovers too.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Gigi. Appreciate you joining us on Huddle Up with Gus. Hey, everyone, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Huddle Up with Gus.
And that's a wrap, sports fans. Thanks for joining in the fun at the 1631 Digital Studios for another action-packed Huddle Up with Gus, featuring 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. Huddle Up with Gus is proudly produced by 1631 Digital Media and is available on Apple Music.